Okay, we're recording. Okay, my name is Lewis. My baby daughter Shatana has children in the Jennings grade school, and one of the teachers there has asked to have some interviews done of people that's in the military or veterans, and she indicated that they needed to interview somebody from the Navy, and Shatana spoke up and said that her mom and dad was both in the Navy, so that's what this interview is about. And we thought since they wanted to interview instead of us just talking, we talked our granddaughter Emery into doing the interview for us, asking us questions. And none of us are professionals, and it's going to seem kind of funny maybe. And if you get to laughing at us, that's good, because then it's better than just sitting here and your eyes falling to sleep, you know. So we're just going to have as much fun as we can and tell what was asked from this list of questions that was given to us from the school teacher. So anyway, so now I'm going to introduce my granddaughter. This is Emery. Her name is Emery Anderson. She is our granddaughter. She's Shane and Heather's daughter. And she's just going to ask us questions, and she's going to be as nervous as I am, and I'm just rambling, and if she does that, that's okay too. So anyway, so Emery, it's all yours, baby. You just tell them who you are, and then you just do what you want to.
My name is Emery Anderson, and Kathy and McKinney, Kathy and Lewis are my grandparents, and I'm going to be interviewing them because they are veterans. Grandma, what is your name, and tell me something about you.
My name is Catherine McKinney, and I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother, and I enjoy camping.
And when and where were y'all born?
Liz, you want to go first?
Okay, I was born in San Pablo, California in October 1956. My dad moved us to Oklahoma, Gans, Oklahoma in 1970. And that's where I graduated from high school in 1970. I joined the military in 1975, a week and a half after I graduated. And so we'll go from there, and I'll let Kathy tell a little bit about her start.
I was born in Washington State. My father was in the Air Force, and my mother followed him up there. We moved to Colorado when I was 4. I joined the Navy on May 1st of 1975, just before I graduated from high school, but I had graduated midterm, therefore I was able to head right on to basic training.
What was the branch of military in which you served?
Okay, we both served in the United States Navy. Like Kathy said, she joined May 1st, I think she said, of 1975. I joined May 28th of 1975. We ended up being at basic training, or what a lot of people know as boot camp, in Orlando, Florida.
At the same time.
And we were there for almost 2 months together. But we didn't know each other then. And it was like 6 years, well, almost 6 years after that, not quite, that we met each other. And so we've been together for 40 years coming January. So anyway, that's how we got our start. I joined the military because I wanted to get more education. I knew my mother and father could not afford to send us to college. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And so my brother and I took it up on ourselves to contact the recruiter, and we liked the Navy, what the Navy education had the best at that time. So that's what we did. And so I graduated from boot camp in the end of July of 1975, and I'll let Kathy say something about her basic training. Oh, and the food at basic training, not good, but you know what? You're working so hard that you're not going to turn anything down.
It was either eat it or go hungry, and you didn't want to go hungry at basic training because you never knew how long you were going to be between meals sometimes.
What's next on our list, Emery?
Did you serve during wartime? If yes, what war did you serve during?
Well, I know, I'm going to speak for Kathy just a little bit. I know she caught the very end of the Vietnam, what was considered the Vietnam era. And so she was into that. The war really wasn't going on then, but she did come into the Navy just before that era ended. So she was qualified as a Vietnam era veteran. I was not, because it ended like 2 weeks before I joined. So, but I was on board a ship in 1980 when the Iranian crisis was started. And so we went on an extended cruise to the Indian Ocean to Diego Garcia, and we'll talk more about that later. So yes, I was involved in the Iranian crisis at that time, and it was a real war. There was a Navy ship that actually got torpedoed by a submarine and everything else. So anyway, I was on a submarine repair ship myself. That's what we did. So, you know, I kind of took that question for both of us, but we'll let Emery go ahead now.
What caused you to join the military?
I was 17, I had a baby, and had no job prospects and no money to go to college. It was an educational opportunity for me, and I had my options. I could have joined any service. My test scores were high enough. However, I chose the Navy because I liked their uniform.
And I already stated that I joined because my main reason at that time was because I wanted more education of some kind. And so anyway, you know, as my time in the Navy went, I become to understand that I was not only getting something for myself, I was providing a service which was very important. I became to understand what a patriot really is, and that somebody has to do what Kathy and I were doing at the time. If we hadn't volunteered, they would have had to have drafted more people to do things. So anyway, that's where we are there.
Could you tell me about the training you received when you entered the military?
Do you want to talk anything about that, Kathy, or no?
Boot camp was totally different. I grew up in Colorado, and boot camp was in Orlando, Florida, which was a totally different. I had never been on an airplane before, and I had to fly to basic, and the weather was totally different. It was hard work. We had, during our 7th week, it was called what we call our service week, and they put us in jobs all over the base, and that was an eye-opener. Number one, helped you to kind of see where you could maybe work when you're out of basic training, but it also indoctrinated you into some of the other areas that maybe you weren't comfortable with.
You know, basic training or boot camp. A lot of you kids will understand that better. Its main purpose is to cause you to be able to do what you're told, when you're told, every time you're told to do it, all of the time. And they taught you when you made a mistake that there's consequences for those mistakes. Now, they weren't serious. I mean, but they did things to make us a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, they didn't hit us and beat us up and everything. They just made us do extra exercises and, you know, just things that weren't so fun, extra cleaning things that you wouldn't dream of doing probably, really. But, you know, basic training was just to teach us to do what you're told to do when you're told to do it, and there's a real reason for that in the military. That's the way the military has to work. It's not a bad thing. And that, excuse us for a second, we have a noisy school bus We live. Oh, by the way, we live in Okemah, Oklahoma, and we have a very busy street here on Cherry Street and Fifth Street. So anyway, after basic training, I was guaranteed an ACE, what they call an A school, which was, and I joined the advanced electronics field, and I barely knew what an electron was, but they taught me, and they taught me very well, and then I got to go to some equipment schools, some radar schools, and then after that I went to ship, and I continued to get more training, you know, on the job training, I guess you would call it, and I got a lot of experience out of that, and all that training paid off because about a year and a half after I got out of the Navy in 1989, about a year and a half, middle of 1990, I was able to get a job with the Federal Aviation Administration, and this last August I had been with the FAA for 30 years. So the military can be very advantageous for you if you only went in for it for that reason, but you'll find out if you go in, you'll also end up with a sense of patriotism and learn that you're providing a service to a lot of people that you care about and that you love. So.
How many years were you in the military?
I was only in for a year and a half. I went to my first duty station, and in between my first and second duty station, I got married, and I got pregnant, and I ended up losing my baby, and the Navy let me out on a hardship discharge.
What was the question, Emery? How long were we in the Navy? Oh, okay. Altogether, I served 12 years. After I got out of boot camp, I went to, I told you a while ago, A schools. A schools is where you learn how to work on things, and they teach you the basics, and they teach you how to learn on equipment, and then you go to a ship. My first ship I was on was a refueling ship, an oiler they call it. We refueled other ships at sea while we were underway, while we were moving through the water. And the ship that I was on carried 9 million gallons of fuel oil, and we would give fuel to aircraft carriers and destroyers and cruisers and not battleships. We didn't have any battleships out there at that time. And so that's what we did. I was on that ship for almost not quite 2 years, and it decommissioned. In other words, they put it out of service. And then I went to what is called a submarine tender. It's a submarine repair ship. That ship can fix anything on a submarine. If it had a place and all the materials, there's enough skill and enough knowledge on that ship to build a submarine. So we did that. That was the ship that I went to Diego Garcia on during the Iranian crisis. Now, a nice little fact to know, we know these days that women are now involved in every part of the military, and the Navy is the same way. They are involved on every ship now, combatant ships, every kind of ship almost you can think of, I think, except submarines right now, but I think they're working on that. But anyway, in 1978, we were the second ship in all of the Navy to get women on board on a ship. And that was only like 3 or 4 months after the first ship that got women, which was only 2 piers down from us. That was USS Vulcan. I was on the USS L.Y. Spear. Women came aboard about not quite a year later. The Iranian crisis came up, and we ended up going on an extended cruise, like I said, to Diego Garcia. We were the first ship to go on an extended cruise with women on board, and that was in 1980, early March or April of 1980 that we left. So,
What was your primary job during your time in military service?
My primary job was to provide support, personnel support. I was stationed in an at an air base in Kingsville, Texas, my first duty station, and I was working out on the flight line. Not only did I do some of the paperwork, but I also had to learn how to prep an airplane for a flight. My second duty station, I worked in the dining hall at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and then they moved me to an office in the machine division.
My primary job, I was an electronics technician, and primarily in radar, the radar field, and communications. And I got to work on cryptographic equipment, which is top secret equipment that ciphers intelligence and then deciphers intelligence, so that the enemy can't tell what the information that's being sent, what the information is. So anyway, so I did that on every ship. I had a 2-year break in service. Then I went to, in 1983, we joined the Navy again. I had shore duty in China Lake, California for about 3.5 years. And then I went to an aircraft carrier in San Diego, California, which was a good experience. I was electronics technician there also. And the coolest thing about being on the aircraft carrier was watching F-14 Tomcats take off at nighttime from the runway on the deck of the aircraft carrier. And then I had an injury, had to get off that ship a little bit early, and then I went to a light cruiser. It's the last ship that I was on, a smaller ship with less than 300 people, but that was probably my favorite duty as far as being on a shipboard.
What was the highest rank that you earned?
I went up for E3.
I was what was considered an E6, which in the Navy, I was an electronics technician, petty officer, first class. That's how our designation was.
What was the best and worst military food that you were served?
The best I ever had was not when I was active duty. It was on a dependence cruise, and they had what they called surf and turf, which was steak and lobster. And that was on the USS Ranger with my husband.
Which was the carrier.
Yes.
And you can imagine, we raised 7 children. Emery's mama was right in the middle. And so whenever I tell people on board any new ship I went to, they ask about my family and saying I have 7 children. They said, whoa, wait a minute. They'd always stop me in the middle. They say, what? Now, no way you can have 7. I said, yes, we raised 7 children. So that's the only reason I was in the Navy for 12 years instead of 20, because Kathy needed help raising those 7 children. And so I only stayed in the Navy for 12 years. Food. That's where we were. Okay. Well, no, we got by in basic training. The first ship, the food was the worst of any place I've been. And it wasn't the people that cooked the food. It's because of the type of ship I was on. It said it was a refueling ship. It was called an oiler. Well, everything, even in the kitchen and we're in the dining room, everything smelled like fuel oil all the time. So your food even sometimes had a taste of fuel oil. So it wasn't very good. And I'm going to wave at a neighbor. Hi, Billy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Anyway, the best food, the aircraft carrier was really good. Really didn't have any complaints. The aircraft carrier had 2 kitchens and 2 areas of dining, one way forward and one way aft, and the aircraft carrier is almost 1,100 feet long. So
It's 2 football fields.
So anyway, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when you're underway, food was being served. So if you felt like it and you had time, you could eat as many times in the day that you wanted to. So that was a really good thing. But the best food was on the submarine tender that I was on, submarine repair ship. And the reason for that is because we fixed submarines. We repaired submarines when they came in to shore and docked up next to us. And so the guys on submarines, that's very stressful duty. So about the only good thing they can really do for them is give them really good food. So they had the best food when they were underway. When they pull up next to us, they came to our ship to eat. Well, so we got their money for rations on our ship. So we got the pleasure of eating the same thing that the submariners ate whenever they came in. So, and we had everything you could think of. I mean, just like Kathy said, we had lobster and steak, and I didn't know what lobster and steak was until I went to the Navy. So anyway, so it's pretty much my experience there.
Could you tell me a funny story from your time in the military service?
I can think of one for me. When I was stationed at the Naval Academy, the cadets from the academy were out on their sailboats trying to sail. And they'd run the sail up, and they'd get to going, and the wind would blow them over. Well, typically you're supposed to take your sail down and then right the boat and then run your sail back up. But they evidently didn't learn that lesson, because they kept they'd try to get the boat upright, and they'd get it almost upright, and the wind would catch it, and they'd flop it back over again, so they were flip-flopping in the water. We were standing on the pier laughing.
I guess, I can't think of anything really. We had some good times. There's funny things that happened, but nothing coming to my memory right off. But I can think of something that's kind of humorous. I don't know about laughing funny or not, but on my first ship, at one period during the 7.5-month cruise in the Mediterranean, we had mail call because we had just refueled the carrier and they had shipped our mail over to us. And so they had mail call after a little while, and I run from one end of the ship to the other end of the ship, and whenever I went through the hatchway, I hopped, but I didn't duck. Well, I busted my head open. Took 21 stitches in my head. And anyway, I landed flat on my back and was bleeding, and I got stitched up, and I had to lay in bed while we were in the middle of the ocean for a week. I had to lay in bed and couldn't move. Well, guys that I worked with would come down by my rack, by my bed, and ask me how I was doing, and they would purposely make me laugh because they knew it would hurt to laugh, because everything I did would hurt these muscles up here in my forehead. And so that was kind of humorous because my friends and my shipmates thought that that was kind of funny. And the good thing is, I did get mail. I got about 14 or 15 letters, I think. So anyway.
What was the most challenging or difficult part of being a soldier?
For me, that's an easy one. I loved being underway. I liked being at sea. I liked my work. But I was a homebody. I liked being underway, but I didn't like being away from my family. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense. So the most challenging part was hoping that my wife was okay, trying to take care of all of those kids by herself. So that was the most challenging, really the hardest thing for me to deal with. I really didn't have a hard time with any of the work, anything that we had to do. And when you're in the military, you don't have just one skill. Especially in the Navy, you are a multitasker, and you do lots of different things. Pardon me. You do lots of different things. So
The hardest part for me was being away from family. But you understand, when you sign your name on that dotted line, you understand that you're writing a blank check with your life and giving that for your country.
Your rights. Yep.
When you join the military, you're signing rights, you're signing your life, you're signing that you are willing to give your life to protect others. that may not have that right.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
That one was easy. There was only one way to do it then. At that time, the only way to communicate on a regular basis was with letters. And the only time that mail went back and forth is whenever you got close enough to the rest of the battle group where the aircraft carrier was, that mail could get flown back and forth to the aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier would take helicopters and disperse the mail to the rest of the ships in the battle group out in the middle of the ocean. And that's how we got our mail. But mail was the only way. So writing letters was the only way back then, until we pulled into a port overseas somewhere. If you wanted to pay for, if you wanted to make a phone call, I mean, it's only for a few minutes, and because it was very expensive. I mean, I was in Diego Garcia, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I called Kathy when I got there, and I only got to talk to her for 4 minutes because I could only afford $20 at that time, and it was $5 per minute for a phone call. So we got to talk for 4 minutes. So other than that, it was all by mail.
And it was by mail. They used to tease him when he was on the aircraft carrier, because with 7 children, and everybody wrote Daddy a letter almost every day. And I wrote every day, because you never know when your husband's gone to sea. You never know. Sometimes those mail bags get dropped overboard, not on purpose, but it does happen. And you don't want to put all your letters in one envelope. So there were letters going out every day from our house, and they used to tease him that he needed his own mail bag because he got so much mail. But there were no cell phones, there were no computers, there was no iPads, iPods, no other way to contact other than to write a letter. And there were times when the guys were gone to sea, we had no idea where they were at. We were not told where they were going to be. They were not allowed to tell us where they were. Somebody was reading those letters, and if they told us, we wouldn't have got. If Lewis had written to me that he was in a certain place, I would not receive that letter. That's one of the rights that you give up when you join the military.
How did you feel when your service ended?
How did I feel when what?
Your service ended.
Oh, when my service ended? Well, you know, it was an easy choice for me to get out of the Navy at the time that I did. Like I said, like her mother, you see, in 1989, basically 88, her mother would have been 10, Emery's mother would have been 10 years old when I got out of the military in 1989. Because I got out like in January. So her mother would have been 10 years old. And so she had a brother that was 10, and she had 2 brothers that were 11, and she had 2 younger sisters, and she had an older sister. So that was a real handful, and so I just felt like I could do a better service to my country by raising my children with a mom and a dad at home to give them the things that a mom and dad can give a child. And I felt like that was the best thing to do instead of going another 8 years and retiring from the military. So I was disappointed because I couldn't finish 20 years for retirement purposes, but I wasn't unhappy about it because I knew I was doing the right thing. So I felt good about it.
I was disappointed because I didn't get to finish my enlistment. I didn't get to finish what I had started, but it did instill in me the discipline and the patriotism that I still keep today.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to work or school when your service ended?
I went to work. I worked in an industrial plant for about 1.5 years. And then my grandma and I we decided that we needed to move closer to a big city about a year and a half after I got out of the military to find a better job, and um, God provided a way there because um, I was able to get a job as a federal employee with the Federal Aviation Administration. Like I said, I have last August I've had 30 years with the Federal Aviation Administration, and so I went to work, but I got a lot of training in the FAA. So military can give you advantages for extra schooling, to go to college, give you money to go to college. I never took advantage of that part, but you should if you have that available to you. And they give you skills, they can give you skills that can get you a really good job later in life.
How does your experience in the military affect your life now? Today.
The discipline.
Discipline, the patriot, like we've both said more than once, the sense of patriotism that it gives you. People that haven't been in the military, yes, they're patriots and they have patriotism. But I think a military person, it can't be helped that a military person has a whole different sense of patriotism. What is being done for your country. Now I believe the families of a military person experiences that. As a matter of fact, the wife and children, they make a bigger sacrifice than the military person themselves. So the spouse, let's say these days, the spouse and the children of a military person make a great sacrifice.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I would. The one thing I would like to share is, you know, Kathy and I feel honored to have gotten to serve our country in the way that we served our country, and to serve you in the way that we served you. And the only thing that Kathy and I, it makes it all worth it to our minds and to our hearts whenever somebody finds out that we're a veteran, that they look at us and say, thank you for your service, and they do it with a sincere smile. That makes what we have done, makes it all worth it. We didn't go into it to get anything out of it except, like we said, maybe to get higher education, because that's the only way we could afford one. That's the only thing we went into it for. So but the service that we provided to our country, we didn't go into expecting, we didn't want to do it to get anything back. And so it makes it all worth it whenever one of you looks at us and say, thank you for your service, and gives us a big smile. And so I want to thank you I hope all of you watch this. I know it's been a little bit longer than they asked us to be, but it was just hard not to say the things that we have said. So, you have any more questions on there, Emery?
2 more.
Okay.
What can younger people learn from your generation?
We said it several times, haven't we, Kathy? A sense of patriotism.
Sense of pride in your country and your fellow man. Be kind, be caring.
Just remember, put God first, yourself second, country next.
And family's important.
You have to take care of yourself. You know, and I'm not saying it in a selfish way, but you have to take care of yourself, or you can't take care of everyone else. Because taking care of after you put God first, and do your part to take care of yourself, because God's going to do the rest. But once you do your part to take care of yourself, you're taking care of your family by doing that. Because if you don't, then they have to concentrate on taking care of you, and so put God first, take care of yourself, help take care of your family, serve serve, be a servant. In everything you do, be a servant. Everyone can be a servant somehow, even if it's in just a little way.
I want to say thank you for this opportunity. We don't get to talk about our military service much. And as a veteran, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen.
And I appreciate the school and the teacher. I wish I knew the teacher's name. I've mentioned her name or his name, but I appreciate that. I thank my baby daughter for being proud enough of her parents to ask us to do this. And I want to thank Emery again for being a part of this. That makes it like a real interview. Thank you.
What are the ways that we can honor veterans for their service?
By being sincere and thanking them for
Just-
spending the time for their service.
Yep, like we said, just say, when you find out that person is a veteran, even if it's a stranger, when you just look at them and say, "Excuse me, thank you for your service," and give them a big smile, and that means everything to us. That's it. All right, we're gonna call
Bye.
this quits, and sorry this was a little bit longer than expected. Hopefully it was good enough to hold attention. There's a whole lot more that we could tell you, details about things, but it could get lengthy. So anyway, thank you very much. I'm glad my wife done this with me, and I'm glad Emery joined us and helped us through this and made it sort of like a real interview, though we're not professionals. So thanks again. GoPro, turn off. GoPro, stop recording.